Well, we live in a higher interest rate world. You all know that because everybody's got a credit card or something. And many of you still hold some debt at very low rates, and that's really good too. Mike Giordano, our financial advisor with Williams Wealth Management, joins us now to help us learn a little bit about how to take advantage of that low debt. Now, before we get into specific scenarios, we know that Mike says there's no cut and dried way to deal with debt. Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, Jane, I mean, finances is a very personal thing. And so it doesn't matter what kind of financial topic you're talking about, but especially debt. People have such strong feelings about debt one way or the other. So you have to help people through what the best financial decision might be, but then you also have to understand their own mental makeup, their own feelings about debt, and incorporate both those things. So whenever we're talking to clients about this stuff, we have to make sure that we're addressing both parts of those so you can get them the best solution. And that's the same thing here.
And talking to clients needs to happen before we get ourselves into trouble, before I say, oh, Mike, I've taken out this kind of loan or that kind of loan. Right. So let's say that we've got a low rate on a loan, mortgage or auto loan. What do? Do you just keep paying that off? Do you pay it off, or do you just stick with that loan and pay incrementally?
The first thing you do, Jane, is you count your lucky stars that you were able to buy a home or refinance your home before interest rates went up. Yes, you definitely feel good about that because it's a real asset for you these days. It's giving you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of extra money in your pocket that you wouldn't have if you bought your home today or had not refinanced, and now you got this higher interest rate. And so if you're sitting on a mortgage or an auto loan that's really, really low, don't worry about paying it off necessarily any quicker. Take the extra money, bank that cash, right? You can probably get better returns out of a money market. Long-term returns on other investments can be higher than 3%. And so you potentially can make more money that way. And so you're likely going to have future debt issues down the line. You may have a renovation you got to do. And so you definitely want to save up some of that cash as opposed to paying down that cheap mortgage.
Okay, so renovation. A lot of people can relate to that. They want to stay in their home, but you want to do some work on the kitchen. It's going to be $20,000 or more, whatever. If you've got some equity already built up in your home, you can use that cash out refinance. How is that different from a home equity line of credit? Is there an advantage to one over the other?
This is a great question, Jane. And I get these statements all the time. Hey, take out all this cash out of your house, do a cash out refinance. Yeah. And it seems really cut and dried, and it seems really exciting. They throw these numbers up there, $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 that you can get. And it's extremely enticing. The problem here is that I'm not saying that can't work for anybody. There's probably some scenarios out there where it may work, but the problem with it, generally speaking, is that you're now taking on all of that new debt at that higher rate. So if you have a $400,000 mortgage and you say, hey, I need $100,000 to go do a renovation, you're now going to pay that higher interest rate on all $500,000 as opposed to going and taking out a home equity loan or line of credit, and now all of a sudden you have a higher rate on just that $100,000 that you're looking to borrow.
So the home equity line of credit might have a lower interest rate, or you're just not borrowing as much?
Yeah, you're locking in that low interest rate, that 3-4% on your original mortgage. Okay. You're keeping that $400,000 there. It's only that new money that you're trying to take out the debt on that you're paying that higher rate.
See, that's great to know the difference in those things. So we know that our overall debt shouldn't exceed about 36% of what we make. Big picture, how do we think about managing our debt in the future?
Yeah, one of the greatest financial phenomena over the last 40 years prior to COVID was how that interest rate mark went from like 20s all the way down to 3%. Yeah. So you hear people talk about buying a home in 1981. They're like, I paid 17% mortgage rate on my interest rate was 16%. And it's true. But all along the way, they were able to refinance from 17 to 14 to 11 to 8, right? And so that kept adding more money in their pocket because they kept lowering their monthly payments. But that's not really the case anymore. It's hard to see a scenario where interest rates come right back down to 3%, where it was almost artificially that low. So we might get interest rates down a little bit, so your mortgage rates could get down lower than today's levels, but it's hard to see where, you take out debt today, you're going to be able to refinance significantly in the future. And so the point here is that when you buy something, make sure you can afford it, make sure you can afford the payments with today's interest rates and not expect to see a big refinancing cycle.
And especially if you buy it with a credit card, because those interest rates are crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mike Giordano, thank you. This is always so much fun.
Absolutely.
We always learn so much.
You bet.